Thanks very much for joining us for episode 34 of InTek Freight and Logistics, the podcast. I'm Kevin Baxter, and I'm joined by my co-host for this edition, InTek President Shelley Austin. How you doing, Shelley?
Doing great, thank you.
On this episode, we are talking olives and how a notable American producer handles its supply chain. Let's get started. So when we talk about freight of all kinds, it means just that. And different shippers have different needs depending on their key products. So on this episode, we spotlight the largest producer of black ripe olives in the U.S., whose products you've almost certainly seen at your local grocery store, California-based Musco Family Olive Company. To offer his insights from the business, we welcome Michael Lynn, Musco's Senior Director of Supply Chain. Michael, thanks very much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
So first off, tell us a little bit about your background in transportation. I know this isn't your first gig, so tell us a little bit about that, and then also what you are doing with Musco right now.
Yeah, so I started off coming out of college working for a large CPG company manufacturing salty snacks. You probably know who they are. And I climbed the ranks there in manufacturing. And about halfway through my career, I switched over to the warehousing and transportation side. Got to learn a lot about having a private fleet, leveraging carriers. We did a lot of ocean freight coming out of California over to Hawaii and also to some of the military bases in the Pacific Rim. So learned a lot during that time. I went to go work for a major chemical distribution company, moving product around. Again, they had a large private fleet as well as used carriers, implemented a transportation management system, and worked at a small art distribution company, got to really experience small parcel. And then now I've been at the Musco Family Olive Company for almost 6 years now. And I have responsibilities for everything from logistics, moving trucks around. We move our olives throughout the United States. We do some imports of some olives, so do a little bit of ocean freight. Managing our warehouse and those things. And, right now we're just trying to figure out how to optimize our supply chain and make it more nimble as well as more efficient.
Great. So tell us a little bit more. I mean, we obviously talked about, I mentioned the ripe black olives being like the leading producer there for Musco, but what are maybe some brands that people might recognize in the store as they head through the grocery aisles?
Yeah, so to your point, we're the largest table olive producer in the United States. Our major brand is Pearls. It's kind of the yellow label with the hand with the olives on the fingers. That's probably the one that you know the best. We also have a red label, Early California olive. That's also our brand. And then we do some private label for a lot of the major grocery chains, big box stores that are known throughout the United States. We produce private label olives for them. But it's not just black ripe olives that we're into. We also have a green olive that we bring in. So you'll see those in glass jars, the pimento stuff olives. And then a new line that we brought out over the last probably 6 years or so is our specialties olives. So it's the green olives that have the garlic stuff, the jalapeno, the blue cheese, the vermouth. So the things that you really want in those martinis at the end of the day, those are the ones that we sell in those glass jars.
I was going to ask you about the blue cheese stuffed ones, Michael, because those are important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely can't have a dirty martini without a little blue cheese in there, right?
Absolutely.
So you mentioned you got the variety of products, and you mentioned some of the different ways that you move them. But starting back from the beginning, I guess, because you're dealing with farmers to start the process, basically. So take us through the entire sort of supply chain journey of the olive.
Yeah, so all olives that we use for black ripe olives are grown out here in California. We're proud of the fact that all of our black ripes are California grown. So we contract grow with farmers. They bring them to our receiving stations, and then we have trucks that bring flatbeds in with these bins that hold all these olives. We'll bring them into our manufacturing facility right here in Tracy, California, so halfway between the two growing regions, and we produce everything here at this site. Once it's canned and labeled, from our warehouse, we either go straight to customers or we go through our distribution network. We've got 9 distribution warehouses located throughout the United States. We deliver to them primarily intermodal. But we use truckload in the event that we've got some pressing need to get some products out there a little bit quicker. In that case, we'll use truckload, and then we'll move some LTL if it's just a couple pallets here and there. But once it gets to our Ford warehouse, or even in our current warehouse here, when customer orders come in, we look at it and say, okay, hey, when do they need it by? And if we have the opportunity in the distance that we need to move it, we'll go intermodal with some of our customer loads. But by and large, most of our final mile delivery is based on truckload, and so we work with our third party group that helps us procure transportation, and then they help us with the whole track and trace program, and freight audit and pay process, just to kind of button it up. But that delivers the can or the jar of olives to the distribution center for that grocery chain that you probably go shop in, and then most of the time they handle that delivery from their own warehouse into the stores.
So, Michael, you talk about using a lot of intermodal. That's near and
Mhm.
dear to us, of course.
Uh-huh.
So wonderful. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
One of the questions, a lot of people talk about blocking and bracing with intermodal
Uh-huh.
specifically, and you have some glass bottles and you
Uh-huh.
have some cans. Is there any uniqueness to what you do on blocking and bracing for the product?
Not anything more than we do for standard truckload. I mean, we we make sure that we're applying airbags inside the container. Um, but that's really about it. I mean, our material handlers are skilled in terms of knowing when we place product in there. All of ours are palletized and stretch wrapped, so we make sure that the stretch wrap is tight. But again, it's the same product that goes into a truck that goes into an intermodal box, and so it really is not handled significantly different. We just make sure that we do a good job of for every load, regardless of truckload or intermodal, that the stretch wrap is tight, that we're applying the airbags in the right locations, and then we also want to work with the driver that's picking that intermodal container up, or even with the full truckload drivers, that when they pull out, is it blocked and braced, or is it braced to their satisfaction before we give them a seal and we turn them loose.
Excellent. I know we talked to a lot of customers that aren't as confident on the intermodal product as you are right now, which
Mhm.
is great. We like the fact that you are, and we like the fact, even at the last conference I was at with you, you speak to everybody to say you have to use both modes, right?
Mhm.
You really need to have that capability to have multiple tools in your toolbox. How have you learned to trust the intermodal system? Do you recognize the service being strong? Maybe what do you recognize it from now to before? And do you have any concerns of, hey, it's on the rail, so I'm afraid I won't be able to get to it if I need to, or some of these other concerns that we hear from people about intermodal?
Yeah, that's a great question, Shelley. I mean, obviously that container is a captive audience once it's on the train, right? And you don't get a lot of leeway on that. In fact, some of the recent incidents that we've heard coming out of kind of the Southern California area with some rail disruption, you always kind of worry about, okay, hey, am I trapped on that train? Um, but the rail does a great job of, when they notice an outage, about how to get it quickly rectified. They know that suppliers like myself are counting on them to deliver, and that service is a big deal. Shelley, I think as you mentioned, uh, you know, cost is important, and obviously, going intermodal has significant savings over the road, and especially during COVID, it was a big deal, right? That there was huge savings in intermodal, um, but service is also important, right? I mean, it doesn't matter how much you save if you're losing cases on the shelf. You've lost out more than than the money you save. So, service has been important, and The one thing that I can say about intermodal is that it's very, very predictable now. And I say that in terms of, hey, if I know that I've got 11 days transit from California to the East Coast, I can almost set my watch by that. It's going to be somewhere in that 10 to 12-day window. I mean, I just know that. In the fourth quarter in the wintertime, if we're going through Chicago and we got to do some switching, there may be a little bit of delay. But again, you plan that accordingly, right? And so I would say that when we leverage both modes, right? You brought that up earlier. Is that I don't like having all my eggs in one basket. I don't want to be kind of held hostage to one mode, and then when it's time to, I want to pivot, that I don't really have a pivot partner, right? So, really aligning our strategy around having good service providers with consistent volume on both sides makes it one that if I get into any kind of issues, I can pivot modes, and then I can ensure my service to my customer. Um, and I think that the trains and the intermodal providers, they understand that, and so I know they're doing a lot of work with providing tools that you can track and trace your containers, and again, more data is important, and being able to see that. I think one of the topics we brought up recently was, if you're an airplane traveler, you get that FlightAware app, right? You get to track where your
Mhm.
plane is, and having something like that on the on whether it's truckload. I mean, there's a lot of technology in truckload, but also leveraging that in the intermodal side. Again, it gives suppliers like myself a lot of reassurance that where's my load, how's it moving along, and then and again, just planning and knowing that the schedules that are coming out from the intermodal providers are pretty solid. That you just plan your transit time accordingly, and you're not going to get disappointed.
So you said two things there that struck me, and I hope I can remember both. Once I ask the first one, I might forget the second one. But so with what you just ended on
Mhm.
the little flight aware, but now we're going to call it train aware.
Right.
So
Can you
is it
trademark that?
we could, yes, I think we could. So isn't it fascinating how quickly the rail containers are now having GPS units,
Mhm.
right? Because I mean, they didn't have those before, and so there's one, you can get to that real time tracking even a lot quicker than what we could before. But the other thing that I think is fascinating, Michael, is we can also see when the doors are opening and closing
Mhm.
in transit. We can also see if there's a container that's sitting at somebody's location and not street turning quick enough to turn it more and keep and add additional capacity. With the fraudulent activity and being able to see when the doors open and close. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on those advancements, because I honestly did not believe they would get them throughout the container fleet as quickly as they are right now.
Yeah, Shelley, I'll tell you that technology is huge, right? And especially with the kind of the proliferation of issues, especially along the border, folks are busting in the containers, and they're cutting the seals, and they want to see what's inside, right? And hey, if I was breaking into a container, not that I've ever done that, but if I was gonna, I've heard, um, but if you open it up and it's a intermodal container full of TVs. You've hit the jackpot. I'm guessing that when they open up a container and they find olives, they're going, "Ah, man, snake eyes." I lost them this one. But I think it's important because from a food traceability standpoint, when that seal's cut, now I'm having to determine, hey, did something happen to my product, right? And if you can see that, oh, the door's open for a minute and then it got shut within 2 seconds because they saw, oh crap, I got olives, it makes you feel better about, hey, it was just an open inspection and then close and then they're done, right? Versus the door's been open for a while, and it's been an hour or two, or it's been 30 minutes, it's been 15 minutes. You start asking questions about, hey, what were they doing in there during that time? So having that technology is huge. It helps with the whole process of food safety, product safety, and then just having a good sense of where your container is at all times, and how long did it sit in some spur that is unfenced or anything like that. Those are big for us from a food safety standpoint.
Now, I would say if they cracked it open and they were blue cheese stuffed olives, it might be a little different story. They might stay open a little longer.
Well,
But
only if there's a
no,
container of vodka right next door, right?
right
Keep
next
that
to
martini going,
exactly.
right? Yeah,
Then they really hit the jackpot, didn't
that's
they?
right. That's right.
Those containers aren't moving for a while.
That's
Then.
right.
Yeah.
So the other question that I had for you, as I was thinking about it, and you're in California,
Mhm.
and that is something very interesting for intermodal shippers. It hasn't been as of late the last couple of years as what we traditionally know for peak season, when things would get tight in California. So one of the things that you mentioned is working with both modes, making sure you have commitments to both modes, and I think that's important to talk about because a lot of people haven't felt that. Security or the need for having that commitment because they haven't really felt what a true peak season is. So Michael, can you kind of explain your situation in California and the understanding of, hey, I really do need to continue to keep with these commitments because when things will get bad again, when they do hit, the railroads are very loyal and committed to the folks that have stayed with them for a long time. But if you haven't, then you're going to have issues with getting capacity and equipment.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Shelley. I mean, luckily the last, I would say the last two fourth quarters have been um, fairly benign in terms of peak. Generally during peak, we'll get capacity surcharges, and then they'll let you have another box or two. Well, golly, fourth quarters, our harvest, as long as with the tomato season and everybody else. So everybody else is making product, they're canning it, labeling, and they're trying to get it out the door. So everybody's crushing on, no pun intended, they're crushing on getting a container. At the same time, you've got folks that are importing products from the Far East for Christmas, and so they're fighting for space too. And the thing that I think is important is that whenever, even as a loyal, I would say we're loyal to the railroads. Once I get to my commitment, right? There's X number of boxes I get. I can get maybe one or two more, but if I'm looking for 5 or 10 more, even I get kind of turned down. And so that's when I need to have, I need to make sure that my truckload side is still willing to take more, right? And so, um, and I'll tell you, even today, some may argue that you can find on the spot market a over the road truck that can take your product over to where your intermodal would go for maybe cost neutral, maybe slightly negative, and folks would run that because they feel like they're getting a little bit of advantage on shipment time. And for me, I think the question is okay, yeah, it's easy to sit there and price shop, but folks have long memories, right? And your the trains, the intermodal providers, they know when you're rate shopping them, and then if you're going to jump off the train for the cheapest person, well, they're going to remember that when times are tough and they got very little space. Are they going to go with the people that brought them there, or are they going to go for the people that are just kind of shopping around, right? And so I feel that that's
Exactly.
real important, and I think I've not been let down with this strategy. I mean, we'll come back, and when we talk to our intermodal providers, they're like, yeah, we know you've been with us. We have long term. Contracts with them, even though we RFP it year to year, we're very loyal to our incumbents, and I think that's the way it should be, right? They're the ones that saw you through the thick and thin, and you owe them a little bit, and that's kind of the mentality I bring to that.
Excellent. Fantastic.
And you really have seen both the thick and the thin since being in this position. I mean, if you've been there 6 years, you've seen the peak and the valley.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It was funny, even during COVID, I mean, I would have thought, it was the mad rush for toilet paper, right? I mean, nobody talked about olives, but holy cow, man, we sold a lot of olives during COVID. I mean, maybe it was all the martinis, but we sold a lot of black ripe ones too. So it wasn't all the blue cheese.
uh, Jumping back a little bit, are these all shelf stable, or do you ever have to deal with any refrigerated options for some of these?
Yeah, Yeah, we're pretty fortunate. They're all pretty shelf stable. Our products have long shelf lives, except for the ones that have some dairy in them, like the blue cheese. Those are a little bit tighter on shelf life. Um, unless it's sitting in a box car that's not moving in -20-degree weather like it is at Shelly's backyard. Other than that, I mean, as long as it's moving and as long as it doesn't sit and sustain sub-zero temperatures, we're okay. So I'm fortunate not to have to get into kind of that temper control.
Yeah. So we talked about using intermodal. We talked about using truck, and you mentioned a little bit how you work with a third party provider too. So how is that helpful to your strategy and managing things overall?
Yeah. So Kevin, I think the thing for us, I mean, Musco Family Olives, we're a small family company, right? We don't have a transportation team like a Coca-Cola or a Procter and Gamble. I mean, I'm it, right? And if it was up to me, I mean, that's tough for me to run an RFP. It's tough for me to be able to track and trace. And then when all the bills start rolling in, holy cow, do I remember what was the cost in this lane and why did I get this accessorial and all that kind of stuff. So we use a third party. We have a managed trans program. So they help us run our RFPs. They help us do all the tendering, track and trace, freight audit and pay. And then I just cut them a check at the end of the week when they send me a bill. And what that allows me to do is it gives me greater access to carriers that I wouldn't normally see. As we mentioned, I'm out here in Northern California, but we sell a lot of olives in that Northeast corridor. And so not not being up there, I don't really know who the right carriers are. Who are the carriers that are the up and coming that have great service, or who are some of the carriers that are struggling a little bit with capacity. And so, having someone that's got that visibility across the board, it gives me access to them. And during our RFP, it also gives me an access to soon seeing who else is out there, and that as we want to introduce new carriers to the mix, whether it's because of service or because of cost, we have that opportunity to reach out and get more. And so, I've been a big believer in this. We started this when I came to this company, as I said, almost 6 years ago, and it's been a big win for us. I mean. We were lucky enough that we got it in place about a year before COVID, and then when COVID hit, and we're losing carriers because of capacity, they were able to source other trucks from us, and during that time we were able to maintain our service levels and get product out the door. So I see that as a win during that time. It was definitely a cost win, but it's also a big thing in terms of really looking at your carrier pool and your carrier partners and making sure that that's a name that you're going to be proud of, that works with you, right? Because when they show up at the customer, at the end of the day, they don't know that it's so and so carrier. They go, hey, that's Musco Olives container. We need to offload that. And you watch on TV, right? You see when there's issues out there. Most of the time, you don't necessarily see the name of the truck. You just see the product that's lying on the ground, right? And so, I use this example kind of tongue in cheek, but I don't ever want to see my product lying on the ground after we hit a bus of nuns, because that's not good publicity. We just can't have that kind of stuff. And also with all the freight fraud going on right now, just having a partner that can help us identify, okay, who are the people we need to be rolling with, and then when they're coming up to our door for us to load, okay, well, let's make sure we're all in the loop on who are we loading, and that there's not going to be an issue there. So, having that third party has been a huge win for our organization.
Yeah, we love hearing that, Michael. And one of the things that you mentioned earlier was you don't want to have all your eggs in
Mhm.
one basket. And I think at least what we talk to different people about the advantages of a third party versus going with a specific asset based provider is like, let's just take the
Mhm.
intermodal side of things, and your third party can make sure you have the access to the BNSF, to
Mhm.
the UP, to all the different railroads, versus if you were just going with one asset provider, then you're kind of stuck with one
Mhm.
railroad. So if there's a derailment on one, you can jump to the other. If there's a hurricane hits in one area, you can jump to the,
That's right.
you have that flexibility. So I think that kind of adds to
Mhm.
what you've been saying about the third party. It gives you all that flexibility and to be nimble and be able to pivot when you need to
That's right.
pivot.
That's 100% right. And, and I think that that's the big thing right now is one thing that we learned coming out of COVID is, when for instance, we used to bring a ton of stuff through Oakland, and it was tough getting, ships offloaded off of Oakland. We pivoted and we started bringing stuff in on the East Coast and intermodal and product all the way back into California. And you go, well, man, how much did that cost you? I tell you, it cost us pennies compared to how much a lost sale cost us, right? And so, really doing the homework on, having a partner who can give you ideas. They have access into other locations that you may not frequent that often. Again, it just gives you that nimbleness that's important, and I think that's the name of the game today. Things are getting kind of back to normal in terms of, we're hoping inventory stabilizing across the board, and I fully expect a rebound in the transportation kind of industry in the next kind of 6 to 12 months. But again, we want to make sure that we're nimble, that we can one take advantage of areas that we've kind of struggled with as new carriers come on board, as new opportunities open up, that we can be there. But at the same time, we want to be loyal to the ones that have carried us through, and make sure that we keep them in business, because we have a vested interest in them as they had a vested interest in us.
We talked about some of the evolving technology out there. One of the things that I know there was a piece in Inbound Logistics a few months ago that you were involved with, talking about your push for automation. So tell us a little bit about that, and I think you mentioned in the piece as well that having that third party partner was a help in that regard
Yeah,
too.
I mean, I'll tell you that when you look at kind of technology and how it's evolving, um, it really kind of goes back to your capability of leveraging that, and how do you get your payback on it, right? And automation, and really just about, where do you spend your labor, right? What are your people doing? I will tell you that before, when we tendered loads, it was such a manual process. I mean, we literally had an email that spit out of our ERP, and we cut and paste that, handed out to two brokers that were close by, and then the information flowed back manually. And then I had a person sitting there typing that information into our ERP, and I looked at that process and I'm like, holy cow, we put a person on the moon, but we're still doing this. And so just how do you take out the non-value added work? And so that person now is managing my warehouse inventory and lot codes and best by dates, where we need someone who's got that gray matter that understands that, and not someone who's just manually keying stuff in, right? So um, you know it's that, and it's also redundancy, right? Because when that person was on vacation, then it was okay, well, who's tendering the loads today? Then we're all sitting there going, okay, Rochambeau on three, right? 2 out of 3, let's go. Well, no, it needs to be someone who, or it needs to be something that can happen without us having to go look at it. And it's just kind of automatic, right? And then we can spend time really, how do we meet or exceed our customers' expectations? The last call you ever want to receive is from your customer saying, hey, where's my freight? Right. Whereas we could, if we knew that there was an issue, right, whether it was train aware or the Project 44
Whatever
information
comes
went
up,
out.
making this happen.
Yeah,
Love
it
it.
just you know it, and then you can call the customer and let them know, right? It's I liken it to, like, if you're at a restaurant and if they bring you half your food and they said, hey, your French fries are on its way, just giving this because we're getting it out of the fryer. You're sitting there going, oh yeah, I'm getting hot French fries, right? Versus you go through the drive-through and there's no French fries in there, and you're going, oh, what the heck, and then you have to go back in and say, hey, you left out my French fries. So I think it's beating the customer to the punch on the information. And I think that the technology that we talk about, at the end of the day, it's all about information, right? Whether it's the train aware, whether it's you know uh, any kind of information we give our customers, because everybody's running inventories tighter now. I mean, yeah, during COVID, everybody jacked them up, but now everybody's gone back to, okay, I only have so much warehouse, I can only have so much in my barn. So if I'm going to be late, I need to know, right? I need to know how late, and then what can we do, right? So it's about providing information, and then about providing value into their supply chain, and all that's important, and a lot of that just comes from the technology that's out there. So, the more information that we have, the more that we can provide to our customers, the better visibility that we have to give them. That's the name of the game.
So, Michael, I'm going to totally mess things up here, and Kevin's going to like kick me for going way off script. But I'm going to reverse and go back to the beginning, because one of the things that I truly enjoy whenever you and I get a chance to speak at conferences and sit down and talk is that yes, we can talk about intermodal and trucking all day long and have a great time with it, but you know so much about the product itself and how it gets to where you need to get it to ship out. So the website, by the way, is
Uh-huh.
phenomenal. The information there is so cool. We talk about automation, and I looked at the automation in the
Mhm.
fields and how that's improved things. But you and I talked a little bit about the similarities and kind of what with the
Mhm.
nut
Yeah.
crops, right? The almonds and those types of things. And I also saw on the website about the comparison of the olives not using as
Mhm.
much water, and water's a big issue
Mhm.
right now in the areas. Can you tell us a little bit? This is the most fascinating thing in my opinion in transportation. You get to see about all the
Right.
different products and all these different neat little bits of information. I love bits
Uh-huh.
of information. So tell us a little bit about some of that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we've really been pushing is what we call modern acreage, where we're planting more trees in an acre. We're using mechanical harvesting, similar to what they use with almonds. And when you have a tighter bunch of trees, when you're watering, you're not watering as much just kind of open area. It's all going to the trees that you're farming on. So and it also helps the farmer at the end of the day, right? Because if they're having to go find labor to go pick almonds, or if they're having to find someone to go pick olives, that's just labor. And again, during COVID, we saw that loud and clear, is that labor gets to be a challenge, right? It gets to be a challenge anywhere you're at. And so the more you go into technology, mechanical harvesting, you can save on, what you're using from uh, uh, how do you get the crop to grow the way you want it to the end product, is when you're doing that harvest. And then even in the plant, I mean, we're doing a lot of things with water recycling, not sending water to the sewer. If you look on the website, it'll talk about Nipa grass, which is a grass that grows heavily, even in salty conditions. And that's basically what we do. I mean, I say this tongue in cheek, and I probably get in trouble for saying this too much, but what's an olive? It's fruit and salty water. I mean, that's what we do. And so, when we have that leftover brine, we have to discharge it. And so, we have an overland application system that the ground uses to filter that out. The grass grows in this salty condition, and we can harvest that grass for usage for silage. So, it's just a kind of a all encompass system that we're using. And so, um, the whole kind of environmental thing is huge too. And kind of going back to intermodal, I think that's one of the areas that we get challenged a lot, is from an environmental standpoint, what are you doing in your supply chain to reduce your carbon footprint, right? And definitely, running on a train is much less, or much more carbon efficient than running a truck. And I know a lot of people talk about electric trucks and how that's zero emissions and all that, and that's fine, right? But I think there's a lot of work left to do there, and the cost of entry is still pretty high. Those tractors aren't that expensive, or are still pretty expensive. The charging network still has a ways to go. So, it's coming on. I mean, I think electric trucks are making its way, but today it's not there yet, and we've got to find ways that we can tell our customers that we're doing our part to protect the environment. And whether it's in the production of product here, or whether it's in the transportation, really leveraging the different modes that we have, the different technologies that are out there. That's what's important to our customers.
You talked about, a little bit of the COVID challenges with capacity, and also the issues with the port in Oakland as one of the things you mentioned. But uh, How important was it, and how helpful has it been dealing with those kind of situations where you talk about the farmers based in California? Does that kind of cut out one of the big obstacles really for you to be able to keep that supply flowing?
It's a blessing and it's a curse, Kevin. I think it's a blessing in terms of you're right here, and you're not kind of hamstrung with getting the raw materials when they have it. The curse is when it's a bad crop year. Now you're kind of hamstrung because it's a bad crop year, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
uh, but in terms of just being able to work around the challenges from transportation, it was great. That our growers are right here in California. We pride ourselves in that. We work with our California growers. We're proud of the fact that we are a California company, and that goes all the way through the supply chain. And I think the growers appreciate that too. We stood by them when times were tough for them, and they recognize that. And when we have bumper crops, we do the best we can to take every olive we can in, because there's folks like Shelly out there that we want to make sure they stay in their olives. So it's been good. It's been
Absolutely.
good, but I'll tell you, it's great when when we can work with them. But when they don't have a crop, it makes it a little bit challenging to kind of figure your way out to make sure you have olives out there on the market shelves.
So what do you do in that situation? What are your sort of backup plans in if it's a bad year?
We're blessed that when we take in a big harvest, that we can hold the harvest for about a year. And then once canned, it's got a pretty long
Hmm.
shelf life. So we bridge that with inventory. um, we get in trouble when you have two or three bad years. I haven't seen that yet. We've had a couple years where it's been a little bit tight, but not to the extreme that we're out. Um, but we've been lucky that we continue to leverage our infrastructure here, taking as much fruit as we can just to offset the tough years.
So Shelly mentioned your website. One of the features of your website that if anybody heads over there, it's just olives.com, right? I think. Yeah. Easy to remember. Sometimes we have websites on here that we spout out so many slashes and .htmls and whatnot that I don't know if anyone's ever going to
I don't think
remember,
anybody
but
ever gets
no, but this one's a good one,
Yeah.
olives.com. But anyway, on the site, you also have a big list of recipes. So do you have any favorites off of that list besides the dirty martini, which we've talked about several times? Sorry.
That you have to make that you can't drink. I have a couple. We did during COVID, we did a meeting, and we had one of our celebrity chefs come on and work with us, and it was a pasta dish. And oh my God, that was the absolute best. And then the one that I cook a lot is the baked rigatoni one. Um, so
Okay.
and it's easy. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. There's not a whole lot in there. I mean, I think it's spinach, sausage. Sometimes I substitute the sausage with chicken, and then olives, and then rigatoni. And I don't know, it takes me like 45 minutes to get it done. Um, and then my wife is kind of partial to the artichoke and chicken dish, and so we'll make those
Ooh,
too. Those are
yum.
our favorites, I think.
Sounds like good California cuisine.
You should check it out. There's a ton of
I'm
that's
going.
on there, and we work with some celebrity chefs, and they help us kind of design these recipes. And so, there's always great ideas for them.
Yeah, one that stood out to me that I thought was interesting was I think it was hot cross buns or something with olives on it. Yeah, yeah, that was a little twist on the using the olive, I think. So yeah, but yeah, tons and lots of recipes to look through there. So um, yeah, I think that about covers it. Anywhere else that you want to point people to find out more about the company?
Think that's the best place. We've got a couple new products coming out. I can't really tip my hand too much on that, but look at your store shelves over the next probably 3 to 6 months. You're going to see some new products out there by us. They're Pearls products, and they'll knock your socks off. I love them. I've tried them. They're typically your olives have a nice texture to them. These have an extra crisp texture to them. They're stuffed with some really good stuff in there, and it's not blue cheese, Shelly, but I think you'll like it too.
I'm excited. So how soon before we get to see these on the shelves?
Probably 3 to 6 months, you'll see something out there. Probably by the fourth
Okay.
quarter.
I just got to remember when I'm shopping, when I'm doing my Saturday morning Meijer shopping, I got to make sure I'm watching.
That's it. I know Meijer will be one of those too. So
Good.
Oh, great, Michael. Thank you very much for taking the
Thank
time.
you.
Appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Thank you,
Take care.
Michael.
So that was, I didn't know about your affinity for the blue cheese olives before. I don't know.
Well, I'm not a dirty martini kind of gal, but
It sure sounded like it in that
I do
interview.
love the blue cheese stuffed olives. So
Yeah,
if somebody has one, like my husband or something, I'll make sure and just kind of, steal the olives out of his drink. But no, they are quite yummy.
I didn't tell Michael this, but I actually, I've gone in phases where sometimes I'll just pop the pimento olives as a snack and stuff too. So
the jalapeno stuffed ones that we take those and we put like a little, salami or sausage and kind of put it with some cheese and, it's a nice little appetizer. So I got the olive thing going. I've got this olive thing going. Yes.
Well, we appreciate again having Michael Lynn on, and thank you for joining us for this edition of InTek Freight and Logistics, the podcast. Check out the link in the description. Again, olives.com. I don't even need to, go over that. I'll write it. We'll put it in there. Yeah. But I think if you're paying any attention, you'll probably remember that one. Subscribe or follow now to ensure that you get our latest episodes as soon as they're available, whether it's here on YouTube, on any of the podcasting platforms you're listening on right now. We appreciate it all. Drop us a review. Those are helpful as well. And leave us a comment. Any comments are welcome. We'll be happy to take a look and respond as well. And if you have a question that's maybe a little longer form, email us at podcast@inteklogistics.com, and we'll get back to you as well. And our website is intekfreight-logistics.com for more about what we do. So, Shelly, thanks very much.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
We'll talk to you next time.